Hey, everybody, welcome back to Grace Talks. This is where we as a church and we as believers talk about really subjects that we interact with every day of our lives. And so today we are venturing into, in my mind, maybe a landmine of a conversation, uh,
Let's hope not.
which is, we're going to try to not do that, which is being a Christian and politics, how those things, and we live in a land, we live in a time where I don't know if we're unique in this sense, but it does seem to be escalated in this particular moment in history and where we're at the very least. And so we have Leon Jones Jr. here who has dipped his toe in the political realm. So tell us, why you're here, really, why we're talking.
Well, I appreciate it. I appreciate the opportunity to come. I am a Christian and I do enjoy talking politics. I don't get a chance to talk much anymore lately because I haven't been in politics for a few years now. But sort of my background, I helped Governor Hutchinson in his first gubernatorial campaign. He then appointed me to be the director of the Department of Labor here in Arkansas. And then after my stint with state government, I ran for attorney general.
Mm.
And so, and of course, I've been around politics for the better part of my life, whether it's was at home debating my dad or now helping my brother run for Congress.
Right, absolutely. It runs in your family, and you are also the head elder here at Grace United Church, so it all
Yes.
kind of works together in that. So really, our goal is to just kind of help people process what it means to be a Christian and to uh, work within our political spectrum. So let me start there. It seems like it seems like everything's extreme right now. It seems like either believers either fully connect their identity to a political party slash system slash candidate, or they withdraw completely from the political spectrum. They're like, I just don't. It's too stressful. I don't deal with it. How were you taught to deal with it? And how do you see it as a healthy way for Christians to engage this important part of our society? Really?
Well, the way I was taught growing up is my dad never shied away from those tough topics. And he always talked to us about politics. And even though he is a minister, pastor, my mother as well, and he never shied away from that because he wanted us to be educated on who our leaders were and the importance of us as Christians praying for our leaders. You know, the Bible directs us to pray
Mm.
for those who are in positions of leadership.
Right.
And so his philosophy, which became my philosophy, is that we as Christians have a duty to pay attention to politics. We have a duty to understand who's running for office, to understand who's been elected to office, and to understand the legislation that is being passed, because that legislation affects us in everyday life. And, you know, as I matured and became um, um, involved in politics myself before I ran, before I got involved
Right.
with the campaign, but
Right.
understanding politics, it became apparent to me that if I don't engage in the political scene, then I'm doing myself, my family, my community, and my world a disservice.
Hmm.
And so, as a Christian, I decided that I am going to fully engage, meaning I'm going to vote when it's time to vote.
Okay.
I'm going to understand the legislation that's on the ballot that I need to vote for.
Right.
I'm going to understand who we put in Congress, who we put in the state legislatures, who we put in the governor's mansion, so that I can understand what direction they're coming from. And so I can then know A, what to pray for,
Okay.
all right? And then B, I can know what to either protest or appreciate. Because there are some things that, we should not appreciate when it comes to politics as Christians, you know? And of course, we know there are things as big as slavery, right?
Right.
And there are things as small as taking care of our widows and orphans. And so all of that encompasses Christianity in politics, in my opinion.
Wow. Um, I think you answered my first question there, which is, how does someone process those issues? And meaning, like, if I'm going to vote for someone, how do I, because how do I inform myself about that? But how does a Christian protest well?
Oh, very good question. So, in our 2025 political scene, right, we as Christians, we see a wide spectrum of protests, right? Whether it's someone sitting out of an election, of an election and saying, I'm not going to vote, or whether it's
Okay.
someone going to the other extreme, trying to stop someone else from voting.
Okay.
And so we see that,
Yeah.
and when I say this, I'm not saying that in a vacuum, separate and apart from Christianity,
And
because now we're seeing a lot of evangelical Christians who believe that if you're not an evangelical Christian, you then don't have almost a right to be involved in politics.
wow.
But then we're also seeing the other extreme. If you are an evangelical Christian, you then don't have a right to be involved in politics,
Right.
right? So we see the extreme on both sides. And so from my vantage point, it's as a follower of Jesus Christ, how do I navigate this volatile world we call politics? And the very first thing that I thought about in advance of this conversation is we had those bracelets back in the 80s, I think it was, WWJD,
Right.
what would Jesus do?
Right.
Or the 90s, I can't remember. Love. If we come from a place of love,
Uh-huh.
first and foremost, because Jesus came to fulfill the law,
Right.
and he said that there are two great commandments: love the Lord your God, and then love your fellow man.
Hmm.
And so if I'm coming from a place of love, then am I going to vote only because someone says that LGBT rights are better than others? Am I going to only vote because someone says that pro choice is better than pro life or vice versa?
Right.
Am I only going to vote because someone says the death penalty is better than not? Or am I going to vote looking at it from a position of love?
Mm.
And so that's where I think we as
That's good.
Christians
That's real good.
have to really focus our attention as we seek out answers to these very complex questions, because these questions are complex. You know, did Jesus advocate the death penalty? Did he not advocate the death penalty? Did Jesus advocate pro life, pro choice? Did he advocate anti gay, pro gay? I don't know. But what I do know is he advocated love.
Mm.
And if he advocated love, then we have to look at it from that perspective.
And I think that's great because I think most people, um, in their rejection of politics or their apolitical stances are mostly reacting to the hatred and the vitriol out there. It's way less to particular positions that people take, although those are important. It's this person they perceive this candidate or this party or is void of love and often, I mean, we can call it what it is. A lot of times it is, whatever the case may be. It's full of hatred, it's full of vitriol, it's full of power grabs, and I think people mostly reject it because not I can't deal with the issues, is I just can't deal with the lack of love that flows within this sphere, right?
Exactly.
So that's really really insightful. Let me throw something on you, and they're not in the questions. I don't think they are. Um, let's see how you respond to this. Sorry for that in advance. But a lot of times I've processed this is that um, people have their view of God, right? And that feeds into how they view right and wrong. And that feeds into which political party they vote for. And that feeds into which candidate they vote for. So, view of God, view of right and wrong, view of political party, view of candidate. So, a lot of times when you attack someone's candidate, they view it as your attack on their God.
Mhm.
Because to them, they almost they don't even think of it. There's this unbroken line between those things, and it's almost they're attacking your identity.
Mhm.
Have you found that if you attack someone's political, you're attacking their God and their identity? Like, have you seen that, and how have you dealt with that?
Absolutely, absolutely. So, I ran as a Republican
Okay,
in the state of Arkansas, ruby red state of Arkansas, right? So, by all accounts, me running as a Republican should be a slam dunk, essentially. But when you, as a Republican, as a black Republican, don't vote for a certain candidate, then it's an attack on all of that candidate's followers.
okay,
Okay. And so that's what I faced as I was running for office.
right,
And I noticed that that candidate was elevated to a point of almost deity. And when you have that, you cannot then say that person isn't worthy of my vote,
mm,
especially if you're running as a Republican in Arkansas. Okay. And so then what did that do? That takes away my individuality, my ability to connect with my God
right,
to decide what candidate is the right candidate for me from a horizontal and a vertical perspective,
right,
or vertical and horizontal perspective, right? And so then when I do that, then I become the villain and not the position, right? It's the person. And so I think one of the problems with politics is that we attack people more so than we do positions.
mm,
And when we start to attack positions, it becomes more objective. When we attack people, it becomes more subjective because I don't know your heart.
right,
I can see some fruit, but I don't know your heart. But if I attack a position, whether it be a political position as it relates to this issue, or whether it be a political position as it relates to that person running for an office, that's different from saying I'm attacking Josh Herbert.
mm,
Okay. And so that's the issue that you run into. People don't look past the person and let's hit the issue.
still with the issue behind.
Let's hit the issue
Mm,
behind the person.
mm,
And if you want to attack on the issue all day, listen, I disagree with the way you voted on this. That's perfect. That's great. Why did you disagree with that? Let's have a fundamental conversation about the reasons why you disagree or agree with it. Not me personally, not your connection here.
yeah, I was telling my sons I saw, and I'm gonna make this up, but I think it was on 60 Minutes, some show like that. And you probably know better than I do. It ran here in the last month, and there were two politicians. I believe they were running for governor, if I remember correctly, and they decided together, one Democrat, one Republican, that they were going to run clean campaigns, and they were only going to talk about the issues. They weren't going to slam each other. And because they did that and actually pulled it off, and they're actually doing it, they got a 60 Minutes special because they're so radically different from it. They're like, we're just going to talk about. I don't hate her. She doesn't hate me. We're just going to run campaigns on the issues. It's so radically different. They got an hour-long special
Yeah.
because they were running politics in the way that you just described. And they're like, what is this weird thing that they're actually talking about?
Right?
The
And that's
issues.
politics, right? That's what politics should be about. you know, and I haven't listened to, or well, not listened to, but I haven't read all of what I'm about to reference, but I've read some of the Lincoln Douglas debates.
Okay.
Okay. President Lincoln was running his presidential campaign against Douglas. I can't remember his first name. And they had I think it may have been Stephen, they had these series of debates where they were like 2, 3, 4 hour long debates, but they debated
Mm,
the issue of the day. And that's why they were so popular because they debated the
the
issue.
issue.
you know? And I'm not saying that they didn't attack each other necessarily, but the issues were more prevalent in those debates than the attacks.
I like that.
And we've gotten away from let's stop attacking people and let's attack those positions that people may be taking.
So And at least for this one, I told you I was going to bring this one up. I read a very one of my favorite pastors who passed away a couple of years ago, Timothy Keller, talked in the political realm, which a lot of pastors do not do. And in that case, he was accused of having a middle position. And he said two things to that. And I want to get your feedback on this. He said, number one, he said, other than one person on the right and one person on the left, everyone's in a middle position. There's always someone that's farther right than you. There's someone farther left than you on almost everything. So almost everyone's in a middle position. But he said, my goal as a Christian is not to be red. It's not to be blue. It's not to be some middle pink color. He said, what I find as a Christian is I live almost off the grid in a diagonal way. Cause he goes, I believe I follow this part. I agree with this policy on this party. I agree with this policy on this party. I agree with this policy on this party and this, but he goes, but my faith doesn't align really just down the line with either one of them, nor does it fall down the line in this middling position that really can't deal with either one. How do you process that? Do you reject that? I mean, how do you process that statement?
No, I like the statement because, like I said, I ran as a Republican, but I am no longer a Republican. And I consider myself an independent, but I don't consider myself a middle of the road individual, right? Meaning I'm not lukewarm,
Right.
because there are some issues on the right that I do believe in and that I do believe are great for our country.
Mhm.
But there are some things on the left that I also believe in
Mhm.
that I believe are great for our country.
Mhm.
And so when I look at those issues, I say, okay, what candidate brings more of these things to the table than the other? And that's the candidate that I support, outside of my brother, of course.
Right.
You know,
He can do anything.
well, almost. There'll probably be some lines of demarcation
Right,
there,
right, right.
but he's blood, right? But outside of that, I look at, okay, is this person who's running for school board more aligned with my school board beliefs than this person? And this person running for mayor, is this person more aligned with my mayoral beliefs than this person? And that's the way I look at that, and that's the way I vote. So my voter card may look like a diagonal as well,
Mhm.
or some kind of whatever it's called, that goes up and down because there is no one person that encompasses everything.
So, and I do find that fascinating. I do find that fascinating that you ran as a Republican, your brother's running as a Democrat, but you've moved because, like, that you come from the same household,
Right.
right? So you come from the same father, the same upbringing, the
Right.
same ideals that can run you into two different places. So how does one deal with Christians who, who hold a position strongly, generally, let's just say either for Republican or Democrat, and they just can't see how you can disagree, how you can be the other party. Don't you know your party is the devil's party? Don't you know that your party, you're rejecting the Bible because my party totally agrees with this party, and the other, the people on the other side. So how would you lovingly interact with an individual that is in that mindset?
Well, I mean, you said it lovingly, right? And so from my position, I have been in rooms where I have heard you cannot support that other party, period, because they are not Christian. So nobody in the other party is Christian,
Okay. Right.
right? So
Right.
you got 50 million people in the other party, and it doesn't matter which party,
Doesn't
okay?
matter.
Because I've been in both rooms,
It doesn't matter.
right? It doesn't matter which party,
Right.
but you got 50 million, and I'm just saying 50, it's probably
Yeah. But whatever the number
whatever the
is.
number is.
Yeah.
So you're telling me that 50 million people are not Christian, not one person in that, but everybody on this side is a Christian. I mean, that's ridiculous. That's just asinine. And so when you think about it, you have to then say, okay, I disagree
Huh.
with that notion
Right.
because I am in this party or I am in that party and I'm a Christian.
Mhm.
My brother and myself a case in point.
Mhm.
You know, I'm a Republican, he's a Democrat. I know that I'm a Christian. I believe full well that he's a Christian.
Right.
And so you're going to tell me that one of us is going to hell just because we are in the other party?
Mm.
This is ridiculous.
Right.
And so it goes back to then I would have to say, okay, person who says that the other party can't be Christian, then what Bible are you reading? What scriptures are you reading? Because that notion is not in the Bible
Mm.
anywhere. If you say you're a Christian,
Right.
don't make it up. Live it. Quote it right. You know, we always get the scripture wrong. The love of money, money is the root of all evil. I've heard that my whole life. Money is the root of all evil.
Right.
But the Bible says the love of money. You preached on this Sunday,
And I did a good job.
and you did an excellent job.
Thank you.
The love of money is the root of all evil, right? So money in and of itself, as you said Sunday, is a great servant but a horrible master.
Yeah.
And so why then am I going to distort the word for political gain, which is what's happening, which is what happened in the 18th century in America. The word was distorted for political and monetary gain. And we know what happened.
Hmm.
And so people are still doing that today. They're distorting the word for gain.
So I know that we have our particular bent here at Grace United Church. Um, and it's so we need to stick with general principles. But as a person who has been in the political, as a Christian, been in the political realm, that type of thing, how does politics and church mix correctly?
Mm.
How are there any guidelines? Are there any general principles that should be followed? Knowing obviously that there's as many opinions on this as there are, but I think that we saw, as of recording this, probably within the past month, at least two or three events where churches have risen up on both sides, and taken very strong opinions on said things as they do. So how does a um, church members, pastors, how do we interact with this all important area of our society biblically and well?
So I think that starting with the leadership, I think the leadership has to be as objective as possible and teach the, laity, if you will, that the best thing to do is to understand the issues. That's what they should do, in my opinion,
Okay.
right? Don't tell me who to vote for. Don't tell me how to vote, but tell me I need to vote. Tell me I need to be educated when I go vote.
Mm,
Give me help getting to the ballot,
right.
but don't tell me that if I don't vote this way, even though you won't know it or shouldn't know it,
Right.
that some way I disappointed God
Mm, mm,
because I don't think I did. Because I really don't believe that God cares who we vote for outside of his guidance. He wants us to seek him first so that we'll know how to be led to whom to vote. But outside of that, he said that he'll handle the politicians when they get there.
right.
You seek me.
Mm,
If you seek me, I'll guide you. You'll vote for the person who is probably the right person because I've guided you.
right.
And then don't worry about it anymore because I got it.
Mm. I know that, what I find is interesting is it's just like politics, and this is really just particularly for Grace United people, which would be the majority audience for this podcast. But um, I know that one of the things that we do here at Grace United is um, avoid um, any kind of policies, or particular candidates or parties like the plague, because I know, for example, as a multicultural church, if Bishop or I would take, this, hey, vote for the Republican Party, then we would lose 50% or 50% of people would never listen to us again
Mm.
on any subject. Or if we said, or Bishop and I would say, hey, vote for the Democratic Party, we'd lose 50% of our people. They would never listen to us on any subject ever again, because they would say, oh, they're over here or they're over there. And so we very cognizantly have decided to do that. And that is not the position of every church. That is not the position of every minister. And for us, at least, our job isn't to judge them, um, as if we could be good judges of the hearts of men, but to do what is best under our conscience and our leadership. And I think that's kind of unique to a multicultural church, and kind of a challenge to the church that you're part of the head leadership in.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that, going also kind of wrapping up the question that you asked as it relates to what should the churches be doing, especially from the pulpit and leadership. So
Hmm.
I think leaders should encourage education, voting, going those things, right? And then I think the congregation itself should encourage those same things, voting, education, but not pushing an agenda. Because the only agenda in the church and for us to extend outside of the church is God's agenda, is Jesus Christ. That's
Right.
the only agenda.
Mm,
We know the marching orders.
mm.
And so outside of that, we are doing ourselves a disservice as a Christian community, whether multicultural or monolithic.
Right.
And so we, as a Christian community, have to get away from if you go to that church, you're bad. If you go to that church, you're bad.
Yeah.
And I think I now 100% agree. Don't bring a Republican in here. Don't bring a Democrat in here and tell me this is who I need to vote for, because then I'm going to stop listening,
Yeah.
regardless of whoever it is. And so, but if a candidate shows up, I don't think you should turn them away either, because if they're not saved, then maybe they could get saved.
Absolutely.
I don't know.
We got something to offer. You should vote for Jesus. Right?
Absolutely.
Just turn the
Absolutely.
tables.
Absolutely.
Well, I really think this is helpful. I think this will be helpful to a lot of individuals who have listened. And what I encourage you to do is, because we're all entrenched in our positions, is to um, simply consider some of the things that we've said. And if they challenge you, ask, are they true? Could it possibly be true that what they said, a position of love, a position of humility, a position that rejects power, and those type of things, if it is that actually, um, should I change my position? Because I think that's the biggest thing in politics is you in life, you find a position, you hunker down no matter what. Whereas you should be a thinking individual, and not be so tied to that, but hopefully you're tied to the positions and influence of Jesus Christ. Leon, thank you so much for giving your time and your wisdom. Could think of no one better to do what you just did with us and lead this church into loving the city that we're all a part of. Hey, thank you guys so much for being with us again, and we can't wait to see you next time. Bye.